So it's finally happened. My favorite Disney animated movie of all time, Lilo and Stitch, has been turned into a live-action remake. One of the things that I was honestly fearing when all of them started coming out. But when this was announced that the director of Marcel the Shell with Shoes On was going to be taking on the project, a lot of my worries went away. I was still worried. What was Stitch going to look like? How was this film going to play out? And after finally seeing the movie tonight, I loved it, and I think it is the best Disney live-action remake yet. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today we're discussing Lilo and Stitch. This is, of course, a live-action interpretation and remake of the beloved Disney animated film Lilo and Stitch, my personal favorite Disney animated film of all time. I absolutely love that movie. So does my wife, and even so does my son. He might be only 6 months, but it was the first film that he very much gravitated to. As we just had it playing on in the background, we noticed his reaction to it, and it absolutely made us both melt. And it's been something that we've absolutely gravitated to as a family as we've gone through and revisited all 4 movies as well as the entire TV show and gotten that nostalgic blast leading up to Lilo and Stitch the remake, which for me has been a film that I've been pretty nervous about, but also excited for at the same time. But it still features a lonely Hawaiian girl who friends a runaway alien hoping to mend her fragmented family. It's the same gist of the story with some changes here and there that we're definitely going to talk about. Some for the better, some for the worse, but in general, this is the best Disney live-action remake that we've gotten yet. And I do think to the sense of it, it is a near perfect, if not perfect, remake of Lilo and Stitch. It was never going to be better than the original. Let's just get that out of the way right now. It was never going to be better than the original, especially to someone who grew up with the original, who grew up and was Stitch for Halloween one time with his sister. It was just never going to be better. But I needed it to hit the soul and the heart of it. And if you can get that nailed down perfectly with some good humor and some fun, then yes, Lilo and Stitch is going to work. And this remake works for that. And I think for people who grew up with Stitch, they're going to take their kids now to this. And they're going to fall more in love with this character once again. And their kids are now going to have a new version of Stitch to go into. And again, they can absolutely go to the animated film. That's no joke. This film is not replacing this one. But the new generation, and that's always been my excitement, is that I've always found that, like, while Stitch sells in merchandise, and I feel like Disney is really, like, the fact that we don't have a ride for Stitch yet, it blows my mind. Well, we do, but it's gone now. It's always felt like Stitch deserved more love, and I really think this is going to be the film that pushes him to that next level. So I'm very excited to talk about Lilo and Stitch today. Please leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button. I know we're all tired of these Disney live-action remakes. Trust me, so am I. Some are great, some are terrible, some are just fine, but a lot of them have never replaced the original, and none of them probably ever will. But I think a lot lack that heart and soul that makes the animated film what it is. And I'm so happy to say that Lilo and Stitch just nails it. And with every movie review, I like starting to talk about my pros first. And I want to start with the reason that I think a lot of that works. And that is because of the director, Dean Fleischer Camp. Now, this guy created Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. He made an amazing animated film for A24 a couple years back. Ever since I saw that movie, I was like, I will see whatever this guy's going to do next. Because the Marcel the Shell with Shoes On shorts were so fun and so delightful and awesome. But were you going to be able to transition that into an actual film? And he did. And the movie itself is freaking great. It's one of the best films of this decade. He is able to infuse a couple different elements from that film into Lilo and Stitch, and I think it is the reason that it makes him probably the perfect director to take on Lilo and Stitch. First off, his background in animation, specifically with Marcel the Shell and other things like that. He's able to grab on that essence and bring Stitch to life into a live-action setting, but never deter or take away from certain things that makes Stitch who he is. Yes, this is a more realistic approach to Lilo and Stitch in certain things and ways, even though it does deal with aliens and sci-fi. But the way that they're able to use Stitch and still have him be so cleverly animated is awesome. Same thing goes for Pleakley and Jumba. The designs of them are fantastic. I know I would have liked Jumbo to be a little bit bigger, and yes, we all would have loved to see Pleakley wear a dress, but for the most part, when you see the aliens themselves, they all look one for one perfect. Especially the opening scene when Stitch is on trial. All of the aliens, it is like basically one for one. They all look the same. And it's that little bit of appreciation that I very much have for all of those little elements. And I would love to pick his brain about certain changes that he did make, like specifically with like some of the blasters. But regardless, I love that attention to detail. And it wasn't something that needed to be there, but it was something that really worked and let the emotion express on these characters. When you have other live action remakes that have maybe deterred away from that animated style and kind of lost the essence of that because you don't let the characters able to express themselves. I'm looking at you, Lion King. What makes Lilo and Stitch really work for that scenario, and it makes me so happy to see what Dean was able to do with that animation department. But second, the other thing that he really brings from Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is that film is all about family. And when you think of Lilo and Stitch, the biggest thing about the family thing is ohana. And ohana means family. And family means no one gets left behind.
Oh, what did you say?
Ohana means family.
And when you look at his background and the story he was able to tell with Marcel the Shell, you're now able to put that and infuse that within Lilo and Stitch. And he's also able to take a little bit of a deeper hit, specifically because it is live action, specifically because it's not animation. And some of that details with Nani and Lilo's relationship and the Child Protective Services and everything that they kind of do with that. That is something that we've seen in dramas and even in real life scenarios. And if you've ever been a part of that or know anyone that's ever been in that field, it is very dramatic and honestly heartbreaking at times. And the animated film has an element to that, and it's good, but it can't be as hard-hitting as I think what this film is able to do. And it very much tugs at those heartstrings between two sisters who really much are each other's ohana, and they are all that they have left. And as I mentioned, they have a fragmented family, and Stitch kind of is the piece that kind of binds them back together in a way, but I've loved this from the animated film, but for me, I think the heart of this entire film and very much just this entire franchise has always been Stitch. But the soul of it, the soul of that original film and the soul of this movie is Lilo and Nani's chemistry. And what Dean was able to bring with that family element from Marcel the Shell and implement it into Lilo and Stitch is absolutely perfection. And if that relationship does not work, this film does not work. It would come off as a fan film of some sense with fun moments with Stitch. But the fact that I was so gravitated into their storyline that even when Stitch was not in the picture, I was fully locked in. And then you give me Stitch again and I'm like, oh yeah, Stitch is in this. And I absolutely love him. And Dean's able to do that. Are able to show that he's able to express all these characters. But second, you're able to bring family into the picture and give a little bit of a hard-hitting more theme for that. Third, Dean is a massive fan of the original film. And hearing all the interviews and what he's been able to discuss with this and how he was afraid to actually take on the project is just fantastic. And I think when you do something like this, you do have to have someone who is a fan of this original material as well. If you don't, then that's when you start to lose audiences. That's when you start to lose the concept of what this is. And the reason that I do find that this remake is basically a perfect remake of Lilo and Stitch. Not saying it's one for one. There's some things that I still question and have issues with, but the heart and soul is there. The essence is there. And if the film is able to capture that and have it, then it's going to absolutely nail that. And I'm so impressed with Dean's directing here, and I can't wait again to see what he does next. Alongside this, I really hope we get a sequel for Lilo and Stitch. There's some things they set up in here that I really loved, and I want to see that taken on. And if you know the world of Lilo and Stitch, there's a lot of different directions that they can take, or maybe even tell an original story like Mufasa decided to do. I'm open all game as long as Dean Camp is in charge and taking it forward from there. I'd like to also shine a light on the actors here too, because Dean, while a fantastic director here, it does come down to the main performances, specifically from Maya Keola and Sydney Agudong, who plays Nani and Lilo. Now, Maya, I don't know where they found her, but she is the cutest little girl and the perfect live action Lilo to the 10th degree. Her excitement, her love, her bond, everything just makes it all work. And for me, this is one of the most important castings that we've ever had in any Disney film ever. Because if this didn't work out again, then you don't believe in the relationship between her and Stitch, and you don't believe in the relationship between her and Nani, which Sydney is amazing as Nani as well, which is a hard thing to take over because the original Nani, the voice actress, was fabulous. Amazing. Which if you look closely, you might even see her in this movie too. Wink, wink. Really loved what those two did with Lilo and Nani, and their chemistry was just off the charts, and they are perfection. They are both stars. I can't wait to see more of them in the future and with whatever projects they do next. But also, we got to talk about Billy Magnuson and Zach Galifianakis as Pleakley and Jumba. Now, Pleakley and Jumba for me are like two of the most best characters and side characters in any sort of Disney project. I mean, I love these two to death. And when they were announced, Billy Magnuson as Pleakley, perfection, straight from the start. Always thought it was perfect. I love Billy's humor and the way he's able to pull it off. And for the most part, I thought he nailed Pleakley as itself. Pleakley also looks great in the alien design, as I already mentioned too, but Billy very, very much just infuses who Pleakley is. Jumba, though, I've always been worried about Zach Galifianakis playing Jumba. And while I like the design of Jumba, I wish she was a little bit bigger. I don't think I cared too much for Zach Galifianakis. I'll talk a little bit more about this, my issues. He's not bad. It's just not my version of Jumba, but we'll get to that. And I think that's honestly like the only thing that like holds me back from being like, this is a freaking masterpiece. Genuinely. But it is near perfect, closest to the perfect that it can be. Of course, Chris Sanders, perfect as Stitch. Courtney B. Vance, I actually really liked his Cobra Bubbles too, a little bit of a different version of him, but no complaints there. It comes down to Lilo and Stitch. I really wanted a couple other things too. And as I mentioned, like I found the visual effects to just be stunning. I think everything across the board is just hits that on the point, never takes away or deters from any sort of moment. And all of it just makes me smile. The humor is there, and there's a lot of sequences that were awesome to see how they were able to recreate, but also just some new sequences that I actually very much appreciate. And everything with Stitch is just perfect. I laughed, I smiled, I even cried. And also another thing I want to shout out is how the film is shot. I actually think the film is shot in a very awesome way that feels different than many other live action Disney films. And I feel like this is the one that really kind of hits the nail on the head and takes a more smaller scale, even though it is massive to a big degree. And again, fans of Lilo and Stitch are going to be very satisfied with that, but also satisfied with a lot of the Easter eggs and fun that you have along for the way. With all these live action remakes, there are, of course, changes as well. Now, there are some changes in here that I absolutely love. There's some changes that I didn't really care for, which we'll talk about those ones in a second. But the ones that I actually really loved is, again, like some of the stuff that deals with the social services. I think that is actually all better. It just really adds more to the drama of the story itself. But the other thing I really was impressed with this entire thing was some of the newer sequences, specifically with like expansions on things and dynamics between the two characters. Now, of course, you get that Elvis mix and the music there has to be there. The Hawaiian culture, which I can't speak to fully because I've never been from Hawaii, is obviously just a great thing for me to be able to be enhanced with, and I really love that aspect to it as well. But the other thing that I was very impressed with alongside this all was the way that it very much harkens and is a love letter to the original animated film. And it's whether it's from the music itself and just some of those pure point moments, or just some of the newer things that kind of feel like scenes that could have been in that original animated flair, or maybe like if they have a sequence like from the original movie where it's like Nani and Stitch and Lilo go to her job, and you know how that's going to end if you've seen the animated film. But what I really loved about like that sequence in this movie was it was a little bit longer, it was a little bit different, but it also worked because it was changed up for the live action. They didn't just try to make it the same thing from the animated film, but they kept the same context. but the revelation that happens after that and how hard-hitting it is. I could sit here and talk about each and every one of the changes, but again, I don't want to get into spoilers because that's not fair to you. Now, let's talk about my issues. Now, one thing I want to mention prior, for people who are expecting Gantu in this, because there were some reports that Gantu is in the movie. He is not in the movie. This is not a spoiler. He's not in the movie. I'm not trying to say anything to that, but if you remember the original one, Gantu's in the movie for like 5 minutes. So this never really bothered me. But I had an expectation and kind of started to think of something once I found out Gantu was not going to be in the film. And the change they do there, obviously Gantu is a big antagonist towards the end of the film. I wasn't the biggest fan of how they did that. It's basically the same thing with just a different character. And I thought you could have changed it up even a little bit more. I think personally the director or maybe some of the writers or maybe even Disney itself were a little bit afraid to change that ending too much. But even on the way home, me and my wife were discussing the film, and I found myself to actually think, oh, if they would have just done this, this, and this, made it not as big, I think it actually would have fit the theme of Ohana a little bit more, and it could have actually made a lot of my issues go away, or not even issues, just more nitpicks. The ending of the film, which again, I can't really get into too many spoilers, or not even any spoilers at all, I liked quite a bit, and it really definitely tugged at the heartstrings. Like, do not get me wrong. There were some tears coming down my eyes, and I better just leave it there. Nitpicks with the ending. I teared up. I liked where it went. It's a little different than the original, and I wish they would have kept some of that from the original and maybe would have changed. Maybe I'll do a spoiler review. Maybe I'll just a spoiler short. I don't know. But either way, I'm very interested to hear your guys' thoughts in there. But last but not least, Jumba. Zach Galifianakis, I started to come around a little bit on the voice, but I felt like the voice should have been a little bit deeper just because of what I'm used to from the animated film. And then some of the story choices they do at Jumba, I also just questioned a little bit. But regardless of that, on Lilo and Stitch to be the best Disney live-action remake yet. It's pure magic. It lovingly reintroduces the original story to a new generation and giving them the chance to fall in love with Stitch, who is still the heart of the film, but the true soul lies in Lilo and Nani's ohana. I have minor nitpicks with this movie. Minor nitpicks. And a lot of that is because this is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So obviously, and of course, I'm going to be a little bit more nitpicky than others. But I walked out of the movie going, God, I want to see that again. God, that was so much fun. And man, I love Lilo and Stitch. And I'm so happy that a new generation is going to be able to capture and bring Stitch to life. Because for me, the fact that it's been this long that we've gotten any material for Stitch is blasphemy. He is one of the best Disney characters of all time, and he deserves better. So with all that said, I'm going to give Lilo and Stitch, the live-action remake, an A-. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts. And, of course, until next time, stay classy.